The 1920s in America. It was a time of change and upheaval, a period marked by rapid social and economic transformation. World War I was over, and the country was trying to find its footing amidst the aftermath of the Great War. One of the most significant changes was the passage of the 18th Amendment to the Constitution, which prohibited the manufacture, sale, and transportation of alcohol. This was a monumental shift in American society. This ushered in the era of Prohibition, a time when the government sought to control the moral fabric of the nation. The goal of Prohibition was to reduce crime and improve morality, driven by the temperance movement's belief that alcohol was the root of many social evils. However, it had the opposite effect. Instead of curbing crime, it led to a surge in illegal activities. The illegal alcohol industry boomed and organized crime flourished. Speakeasies and underground bars became the norm. With immense profits to be made, gangsters like Al Capone rose to power, controlling vast criminal empires and becoming infamous figures in American history. Prohibition was a complex and controversial period in American history. It sparked debates and protests across the nation. It was a time of great social change, and it had a profound impact on the country's culture and its people. The Roaring Twenties saw a clash between traditional values and new modern attitudes. The rise of organized crime, the violence associated with it, and the eventual repeal of Prohibition all serve as reminders of this turbulent era. The legacy of Prohibition is a testament to the complexities of legislating morality and the unintended consequences that can arise from such efforts. Al Capone was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1899. He was the fourth of 9 children born to Italian immigrant parents. Capone's childhood was rough. He grew up in a poor neighborhood and dropped out of school at the age of 14. As a teenager, Capone joined a street gang called the 5 Points Gang. He quickly rose through the ranks, becoming a trusted enforcer for gang leader Frankie Yale. It was during this time that Capone received the nickname Scarface after being slashed across the face during a bar fight. Despite his tough exterior, Capone was known to be charming and charismatic. He was also intelligent and ambitious. These qualities would serve him well as he rose to power in the Chicago underworld. In 1919, Capone moved to Chicago at the invitation of Johnny Torrio, a leading figure in the city's criminal underworld. Torrio was a powerful mob boss who controlled a vast network of illegal activities, including gambling, prostitution, and bootlegging. Capone quickly proved himself to be a valuable asset to Torrio's organization. He was intelligent, ruthless, and ambitious. He was also a skilled organizer and businessman. Capone quickly rose through the ranks of Torrio's organization, eventually becoming his right-hand man. Chicago in the 1920s was a city on the brink. The demand for illegal alcohol was skyrocketing, and the city's gangsters were engaged in a bloody war for control of the lucrative bootlegging trade. Capone would soon become a major player in this conflict. With the passage of Prohibition, the illegal alcohol industry exploded. Chicago, with its central location and extensive transportation network, became a hub for bootlegging. Johnny Torrio's organization was perfectly positioned to take advantage of this new opportunity, and Capone played a key role in its expansion. Capone was a ruthless and efficient operator. He used violence and intimidation to eliminate his rivals and consolidate his power. He also bribed politicians, police officers, and judges to protect his operations. By the mid-1920s, Torrio's organization, with Capone at the helm, had become the most powerful criminal organization in Chicago. They controlled a vast network of breweries, speakeasies, and distribution routes. Capone was a multimillionaire, and his power and influence seemed limitless, but his reign of terror was far from over. Section 5. The Beer Wars. The enormous profits from bootlegging led to fierce competition between Chicago's gangs. The illegal alcohol trade was a lucrative business, and everyone wanted a piece of the pie. The North Side gang, led by Dean O'Banion, was a formidable rival to Capone's South Side outfit. O'Banion was known for his sharp mind and ruthless tactics. The two gangs fought for control of the city's most profitable bootlegging territories, resulting in a bloody conflict known as the Beer Wars. This violent struggle turned the streets of Chicago into a battleground. The beer wars reached a boiling point in 1924 with the assassination of Dean O'Banion. His death marked a significant turning point in the gang wars. While Capone was not directly involved in the killing, it is believed he ordered it. This move was a strategic attempt to eliminate his biggest rival. O'Banion's death ignited a wave of violence that would grip Chicago for years to come. Retaliation attacks became the norm and the city was plunged into chaos. The beer wars cemented Capone's reputation as a ruthless and cunning criminal mastermind. His ability to outmaneuver his enemies was legendary. He was feared and respected by his enemies and allies alike. Capone's influence extended beyond the criminal underworld, reaching into the political and social fabric of Chicago. His grip on Chicago seemed unbreakable. The city's law enforcement struggled to keep up with the escalating violence and corruption. However, his enemies were plotting his downfall. The relentless pursuit of power and control would eventually lead to Capone's undoing, as the authorities and rival gangs sought to bring an end to his reign. Section 6. The St Valentines Day Massacre. The St Valentines Day Massacre, which took place on February 14, 1929, was a watershed moment in Capone's reign of terror. This event marked one of the bloodiest days in the history of organized crime in America. 7 members of the North Side gang were gunned down in cold blood inside a Chicago garage. The victims were lined up against a wall and shot with machine guns, a brutal method that left a lasting impression on the public. The massacre was a carefully planned and executed hit, orchestrated to eliminate Capone's rivals and solidify his control over the city's underworld. The meticulous planning involved disguising the shooters as police officers, adding a layer of deception to the heinous act. Although Capone was never directly linked to the massacre, it is widely believed that he ordered it. His alibi was solid, but the timing and the method pointed towards his involvement. The brutality of the killings shocked the nation and intensified the public outcry against organized crime. People were horrified by the sheer violence and the audacity of the criminals. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre was a turning point in the public's perception of Al Capone. He was no longer seen as a charming rogue, but as a dangerous and ruthless killer. The massacre tarnished his image irreparably. He was no longer seen as a charming rogue, but as a dangerous and ruthless killer. The public's fear and anger grew, leading to increased pressure on law enforcement to take action. The massacre also brought unwanted attention from law enforcement. Federal agents and local police intensified their efforts to bring down Capone and dismantle his criminal empire. This event marked the beginning of the end for Capone's reign. Section 7. The Untouchables. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre put enormous pressure on law enforcement to bring Capone to justice. Elliot Ness, a young and ambitious federal agent, was assigned to lead a special task force to investigate Capone and his organization. Ness and his team of agents, known as the Untouchables, were chosen for their honesty and incorruptibility. They were determined to bring down Capone no matter the cost. The Untouchables targeted Capone's vast bootlegging operation, carrying out a series of highly publicized raids on his breweries and speakeasies. Ness and his team relentlessly pursued Capone, uncovering evidence of tax evasion and other crimes. Despite facing threats and attempts on their lives, the Untouchables remained steadfast in their pursuit of Capone. Their efforts would eventually lead to Capone's downfall, but not in the way they expected. Section 8. The Fall of Capone. Despite his ruthlessness and the efforts of Elliot Ness and the Untouchables, it was ultimately tax evasion that brought down Al Capone. In 1931, Capone was convicted on charges of tax evasion and sentenced to 11 years in federal prison. The trial of Al Capone was a media sensation. The eyes of the nation were on the courtroom as Capone, once considered untouchable, faced justice. His conviction was a major victory for law enforcement and a symbol of the government's commitment to cracking down on organized crime. Capone's imprisonment marked the end of an era. The powerful gangster who had once ruled Chicago with an iron fist was now a common criminal behind bars. His downfall served as a cautionary tale about the limits of power and the reach of the law. Section 9. Legacy of a Gangster. Al Capone's legacy is a complex one. He was a ruthless criminal responsible for countless acts of violence and suffering. However, he was also a product of his time, a reflection of the lawlessness and corruption of Prohibition-era America. Capone's story continues to fascinate people today. He has been the subject of countless books, films, and television shows. His image as a sharp-dressed gangster with a Tommy gun has become an enduring symbol of the Roaring Twenties. Al Capone's rise and fall serve as a reminder of the dangers of organized crime and the importance of upholding the rule of law. His story is a cautionary tale about the corrupting influence of power and the importance of justice. What are your thoughts on the legacy of Al Capone?